Right now, while you are reading this, a package is leaving Edinburgh, Scotland. By tomorrow morning, before your alarm goes off, before your coffee brews, before the sun clears the horizon in Anchorage, Alaska, that same package will be sitting on a doorstep 4,500 miles away. Not in a day, not in 2 days, overnight. And here's what makes that fact genuinely unsettling. Almost nobody knows how it happens. The planes, the sorting, the geography, the money. There is an entire parallel economy operating in the dark hours of every single night, a shadow logistics empire worth tens of billions of dollars, and it runs with a precision that makes the rest of global infrastructure look clumsy by comparison. You've seen the orange trucks, you've tracked the packages, but you have never seen the actual machine behind it. It involves a city of 65,000 people that somehow became the most important logistics node on the planet. It involves an airport in Alaska, a state most Americans couldn't locate on a map that ranks as the fourth busiest cargo airport in the world. And it involves a quiet arms race between three corporate giants who collectively move more freight daily than the GDP of entire nations. Most people think shipping is simple. You hand over a box, it arrives, the end. But the real story, the system, the money, the hidden geography, is one of the most sophisticated engineered networks in human history, and it only works because of decisions made decades ago that nobody outside a boardroom ever fully understood. So let's pull back the curtain, because once you see how this machine actually works, you'll never look at a package the same way again. It's 1971. A 25-year-old Yale student named Fred Smith has just written a term paper proposing a radical idea. What if packages could move the same way passengers do through a hub? And spoke network, centralized, optimized, lightning fast. His professor reportedly gave him a C. The idea apparently was impractical. 50 years later, Fred Smith's impractical idea is a company generating $90 billion in annual revenue, operating the largest cargo airline on Earth, and moving 6 million packages every single day. The professor has not been heard from since. But the story of how FedEx became what it is today isn't just a story of entrepreneurial triumph. It's a story about geography and the almost accidental discovery that the right location is worth more than any technology, any fleet, or any amount of capital. Because FedEx didn't succeed because of its planes, it succeeded because of one small city in Tennessee and the almost absurd precision with which that city was chosen. Memphis, Tennessee population roughly 65,000. Not a financial center, not a tech hub, not a port city. By most conventional measures, it's a mid-sized American city with a famous music scene and an excellent barbecue culture. And yet every night this city quietly becomes the most important logistics point on the planet. Why Memphis? The answer goes deeper than you'd expect, and it changes everything about how you understand the way packages actually move. Here is the single most important fact in global logistics, only about 200 miles from Memphis in Wright County. Missouri sits the mean population center of the United States. That's the mathematical average location of every single American. And what it means practically is that a plane departing Memphis can reach more people faster than a plane departing from any other point in the continental U.S. It is geometrically the optimal position to serve an entire nation overnight. FedEx didn't stumble into Memphis. They calculated their way there. Every night between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m., approximately 50 aircraft converge on Memphis International Airport from cities across North America, Europe, and in Asia. They arrive in a compressed 3-hour window, not randomly, but in precise sequence, engineered to feed a sorting machine that operates at a speed most people cannot visualize. The moment a plane docks, it begins unloading. Packages flow immediately into an automated sorting system. And here's what makes this extraordinary: within 15 minutes. Each individual package has been identified, routed, and physically moved to the staging area for its outbound flight. Not 15 hours, not 15 minutes per batch. 15 minutes per package at industrial scale across millions of items simultaneously. By 2 a.m., planes begin departing again. By 4 a.m., the last outbound flight has left. And by 6 a.m., a FedEx aircraft is landing at an airport somewhere in the United States, delivering packages that were sorted, loaded, and dispatched in the darkness of a single Tennessee night. But this is where the system gets genuinely clever, because Memphis can't do everything alone. Think about Presque Isle, Maine population. 1,000 people. Not enough packages to justify a dedicated flight from Memphis. So FedEx does something elegant, It flies to Manchester, New Hampshire, and Portland, Maine, first larger cities that can fill a plane, and then uses small propeller aircraft to carry the remaining packages north to Presque Isle. The big hub feeds the medium hub, which feeds the small hub, which loads into a truck that reaches the front door by 9 a.m. Every node in the network functions as a mini version of Memphis itself. The geometry scales perfectly from a 65,000 square foot super hub down to a single prop plane bouncing between rural New England airports. And then there's the secondary hub problem. If someone in Phoenix, Arizona ships a package to Seattle, Washington, routing it through Memphis would add nearly 2,000 unnecessary miles to the journey. The package would still arrive overnight, but FedEx would be burning fuel. It doesn't need to burn on a route that serves no other purpose. So instead, FedEx routes Phoenix to Seattle packages through its Oakland, California hub, a clean 1,300-mile path that serves the entire West Coast efficiently without ever touching Tennessee. Memphis is the master. Oakland is the deputy. And together they cover a continent with almost no wasted movement. But there is one hub in this network that doesn't just beat geography. It exploits it in a way that borders on genius, and it's located somewhere almost nobody would ever think to look. The city is Anchorage, Alaska. Population: fewer than 3,000 people isolated. Cold, geographically extreme, and home to the fourth busiest cargo airport on Earth, ranking above Tokyo, Dubai, Shanghai, and Paris. Here's why. If you draw a straight line from Memphis to FedEx hub in Osaka, Japan, accounting for the actual curvature of the Earth's surface, that line passes directly over Anchorage, Alaska. Not near it, not close to it, over it. Anchorage sits almost perfectly on the Great Circle route between the American heartland and East Asia, making it the most geometrically efficient midpoint between two of the worlds. Largest economies, modern cargo aircraft can fly non-stop from the continental U.S. to Asia, but doing so requires carrying more fuel, which means carrying less cargo. The math consistently favors the stop. So dozens of cargo airlines use Anchorage as a refueling and crew rest point, a logistics pit stop on the Pacific route. FedEx and UPS use it for something far more powerful: sorting without Anchorage. FedEx would need to run direct flights from each of its Asian hubs, Guangzhou, Shanghai, Seoul, Osaka, Singapore, to each of its American hubs. The math doesn't work. There isn't enough demand on any single Asia to US city pair to fill planes that frequently at acceptable cost. Instead, everything from Asia funnels into Anchorage. Once landed packages clear, U.S. Customs gets sorted by destination and are loaded onto specific flights bound for the American hub closest to their final delivery point. A package from Seoul bound for Dallas goes one way. A package from Shanghai bound for New York goes another. One midpoint: infinite efficiency. This is the architecture of the overnight shipping machine, and the money it generates is almost incomprehensible. FedEx annual revenue: $90.2 billion as of fiscal year 2023, UPS $91.1 billion, DHL's parent group Deutsche Post approximately $94 billion in annual revenue. Together, these three companies move more money through their networks than the GDP of most countries on Earth. But the way they make that money and the extraordinary financial engineering required to keep the system profitable is far stranger than most people realize. Start with the planes themselves. FedEx operates a fleet of 650 aircraft. But here's the uncomfortable financial reality of overnight cargo. Most of those planes sit idle for the vast majority of every day. Take FedEx Memphis to Oklahoma City route. The plane departs Memphis at 4 a.m., arrives at 5:20 a.m., and then sits on the tarmac in Oklahoma City for over 17 hours before flying back to Memphis at 10:10 p.m. That aircraft is airborne for approximately 2 hours per day. For comparison, commercial passenger airlines regularly achieve 12 or more hours of daily aircraft utilization. Southwest Airlines, at its most efficient, was flying planes for 12-plus hours per day. FedEx's Oklahoma City plane is flying for 2. If FedEx purchased brand-new state-of-the-art aircraft to sit idle 22 hours per day, the economics would be catastrophic. A single Boeing 767 freighter costs approximately $200 million, new spread across 650 aircraft. That's a $130 billion fleet investment, generating 2 hours of daily revenue per plane. So they don't buy new planes, they buy old ones. The Airbus A300, a wide-body aircraft that virtually no passenger airline operates anymore, retired from commercial service due to fuel inefficiency, is FedEx workhorse. FedEx, UPS, and DHL collectively operate hundreds of them, purchased cheaply at the end of their commercial lives, maintained at low cost and scheduled for the few hours per night when they're actually needed. The acquisition cost is low enough that the planes don't need to fly all day to generate a return. They just need to make their midnight run. Memphis at 2 a.m., package delivered by 8 a.m., and that's enough. UPS does operate some brand new Boeing 747-8 freighters, the most efficient large cargo aircraft ever built, but specifically assigns them to the longest intercontinental routes, where the fuel savings over 100,000-plus-mile journeys justify the $400 million per aircraft purchase price. Short routes get old, A300s. Long routes get new, 747s. Every aircraft is financially optimized for its specific mission. This is not a coincidence. This is precision capital allocation at a scale that most industrial companies never achieve. And then there are the pricing sensitivity underneath it all. FedEx and UPS don't primarily serve individual consumers, shipping birthday gifts. Their revenue engine is enterprise contracts, long-term agreements with major retailers, manufacturers, and e-commerce companies that ship millions of packages per year. Amazon at its peak. Dependence on third-party carriers was shipping more than 1 million packages per day through FedEx and UPS combined. At that volume, every single cent of per package cost matters enormously. A 1-cent reduction in per package cost across 1 million daily packages equals $3.65 million in annual savings. That's why FedEx and UPS invest billions into sorting automation, route optimization, and hub geometry, not to impress logistics analysts, but because their largest customers are negotiating contracts where fractions of a cent determine who wins the deal. And this pricing pressure created an unexpected consequence that is now reshaping the entire industry. Amazon, watching FedEx and UPS extract billions from its shipping volume, made a quiet decision around 2015 to build its own logistics network. 32 aircraft became the seat of what is now Amazon Air, a fleet of over 100 dedicated cargo aircraft with its own hub in Cincinnati, Ohio. Amazon doesn't just want to reduce shipping costs, it wants to eliminate the middleman entirely. And the middleman in this case is worth $90 billion a year. The battle for overnight logistics dominance is no longer just between FedEx, UPS, and DHL. It now includes the largest retailer in human history, and the stakes have never been higher. Here is something that almost never appears in conversations about shipping companies: geopolitical leverage. When FedEx and UPS built their Anchorage sorting operations, they weren't just optimizing package routes. They were embedding American commercial infrastructure into the single most strategically important aviation corridor on Earth, the Great Circle Route between North America and East Asia. Every major electronics manufacturer, every pharmaceutical shipment, every semiconductor component moving between Asian factories and American distribution centers. An enormous proportion of it passes through Anchorage, Alaska, an American city on American soil, processed through American corporate infrastructure. This matters in ways that have become sharply visible in recent years. When the U.S. government imposed export restrictions on advanced semiconductor technology to China in 2022 and 2023, the enforcement mechanism wasn't military. It was logistics. It was customs declarations, shipping manifests, and cargo screening at airports, exactly like the ones FedEx and UPS operate in Anchorage. The physical infrastructure of overnight shipping is also the physical infrastructure of trade enforcement. DHL's claim to deliver to every country on Earth, including North Korea, isn't just a remarkable marketing achievement. It's a reminder that commercial logistics networks have penetrated geographies that governments cannot. DHL delivers to sanctioned nations, conflict zones, and diplomatically isolated territories because packages move through channels that political relationships cannot always block. And the scale of these networks continues to expand into territory that has strategic implications far beyond commerce. FedEx operates hubs in Guangzhou, Shanghai, and Seoul. UPS maintains deep operational infrastructure across East Asia. At a moment when U.S.-China trade relations are experiencing their most significant restructuring since the 1990s, these companies sit at the exact intersection point of economic interdependence and geopolitical rivalry. They are simultaneously American corporations and essential components of Chinese export infrastructure, a tension that no boardroom decision can fully resolve. The Memphis Superhub, meanwhile, has become something its founders never explicitly intended: a critical national infrastructure asset. A cyber attack, a natural disaster, or a major operational failure at Memphis International Airport would not just delay packages. It would interrupt pharmaceutical cold chain deliveries, disrupt automotive parts, supply chains, and halt e-commerce fulfillment for tens of millions of Americans simultaneously. The Department of Homeland Security has quietly classified major cargo hubs as critical infrastructure. Accordingly, the overnight shipping network is no longer just a convenience. It is a load-bearing pillar of the modern economy, and the entities that control its nodes control something far more consequential than package delivery. That's a fact that FedEx, UPS, and their shareholders understand clearly. It's a fact that governments are only beginning to fully reckon with. Go back to Fred Smith's term paper, the C grade, the impractical idea. What his professor missed wasn't the business model. What he missed was the geography. The insight at the core of FedEx empire was never about planes or trucks or sorting machines. It was about understanding that location, compounds, that the right node in the right place doesn't just serve its immediate market, it serves every market connected to it and every market connected to those markets in an exponentially expanding web of reach and efficiency. Memphis works because of Wright County. Missouri Anchorage works because of Earth's curvature. Oakland works because Phoenix and Seattle both need a closer hub. Every node in the network was chosen not for what it was, but for what it connected. This is the real lesson of overnight shipping, and it applies far beyond logistics. The companies, cities, and systems that win in the modern economy are almost never the ones with the most resources. They're the ones that position themselves at the right intersection, the ones that understand that being central geographically, economically, informationally is worth more than being large. FedEx is not valuable because it has 650 planes. It's valuable because its 650 planes are positioned in a network where removing any single node causes cascading failure across the rest. That's not a fleet. That's a dependency structure. And dependency structures once built are extraordinarily difficult to displace. Amazon has 100 aircraft and billions of dollars and the most sophisticated logistics data in the world. And it still cannot fully replicate what FedEx built in Memphis over 5 decades because the network affects the hub geometries, the customs relationships, the operational knowledge embedded in those midnight sorting runs. None of that can be purchased. It can only be accumulated. Tonight, while you sleep, 150 planes will converge on Memphis in a 3-hour window. Packages will move through a system so fast it seems like a hallucination. A box handed over in Edinburgh will land in Alaska before breakfast. And somewhere in Tennessee, in the dark, a machine that one professor called impractical will do what it does every night, quietly and visibly, and with a precision that the rest of the world is still trying to understand. The most powerful infrastructure on Earth doesn't announce itself, it just delivers.